Aigiri Nandini Nandita Meni Vishwa Vinodini Nanda Sute Girivara Vindhya Shirodhini Vasini Vishnu Virasini Jishnute Bhagavati He Shiti Kanta Kutumini Puri Kutumini Puri Kute Jaya Jaya He Mahishasura Mardini Ramyata Mardini Sainasute Suravara Varshini Durthana Dharshini Durmukha Varshini Harshanate Tribhuvana Poshini Shankara Toshini Kilvisha Poshini Kosharate Tanujani Roshini Niti Sundaroshini Durmana Shoshini Sindhu Sute Jaya Jaya He Mahishasura Mardini Ramyaka Mardini Sainasute Vai Jagadamba Madamba Kadamba Vana Priya Vasini Hasarate Shikhara Siromani Tunga Himalaya Sringani Jalaya Madhyagate Madhu Madhure Madhu Kaita Bhaganjini Kaita Bhaganjini Rasarate Jaya Jaya He Mahishasura Mardini Ramyata Mardini Sainasute Ai Sharanagata Vairi Vatu Varavina Maravaya Daya Kare Tribhuvana Mastaka Shona Virodhi Shirodhi Kritamana Shobhatare Dummi Dummi Tamara Dundu Vinada Mahamukare Vidate Makare Jaya Jaya He Mahishasura Mardini Ramyaka Mardini Sainasute Jaya Jaya He Mahishasura Mardini Ramyaka Mardini Sainasute Jaya Jaya He Mahishasura Mardini Ramyaka Mardini Sainasute. I kept the song short.
But it was beautifully sung and didn't seem short at all.
It's a very long song, it can go on and well, you know, I didn't want to. If I hear people singing along, I may continue, but if I feel lonely singing. Yeah, the thing is that if you don't have the words, it's it's not possible. I understand that.
We wanted to hear you speak also. That's
Yes,
why the song should not go too long.
Exactly. So we are going to talk about Shankara, and in the presence of Shankara. So, Brother Shankara, the meaning of your name, have you been told? What's the meaning of your name?
Well, why don't Swami Chaitanya gave me a meaning of it in 1975, but you can tell me again.
The meaning I found was Sham means bliss, and Kara means the giver, the producer of bliss. It's bliss. What did Swami tell you?
He gave me a letter to climb. He said the name means one who does only good to the world.
Nice. So Shankaracharya is known as the main teacher of Advaita Vedanta, main representative. Without him, it would be very difficult to understand Advaita. It is thanks to his contribution that today, when we speak of Advaita Vedanta, is something very clearly understood, because he is the one who defined it and developed it. It was all there in the Vedas. He did not preach anything new. But the greatness of Shankaracharya is to be able to decipher what was already there, put it together, and organize it, and present it to people, and make it accessible to people at large. He had a multifaceted personality. He was not just a spiritual teacher. He did many kinds of things. Radha Krishnan, he was the first vice president of India. He was a follower of Shankaracharya. And in fact, he also wrote the Brahmasutra Bhashya. And pretty much the same as Shankara's ideas, a little deviation here and there. But he wrote about Shankara, he says, the life of Shankara makes a strong impression of contraries. He is a philosopher and a poet. He is a savant and a saint. He's a mystic and a religious reformer also. There have been few minds more universal than his. So when he says he was a reformer, he is referring specifically to how he reorganized the monastic orders of India. In those days, the monks were just wandering around without any organization. And the Buddhists were very powerful because they were well organized with monasteries and all that. So Shankaracharya, his greatness was he could see the good in different things and absorb it into Hinduism, into the Vedic religion. So he saw that the Buddhists are very good at organizing. We should do the same thing. So because of that, because he could learn from other traditions, he was called by his critics a Buddhist in disguise. Can you imagine call Shankaracharya Buddhist? But it is because he learned things from Buddhism. He assimilated what he found of value in Buddhism. Then he was a philosopher. All these commentaries that he wrote on the scriptures and how he expounded the teachings, made them understandable to people. So he was a philosopher. He was a poet. He wrote many beautiful hymns to gods and goddesses on many subjects also. Beautiful, really beautiful poems. On the river Ganges, on Ma Ganga. Can you imagine an Advaitin? He writes to Mother Ganges. He wrote on Ganesha, on all the main deities. Beautiful poems. And we sing them even today. And he was a mystic because he introduced the formal worship of deities in his monasteries. So it's a very interesting combination of different things put together, like he's teaching Advaita and he's introducing the worship of images and composing hymns to gods and goddesses. So for somebody who is new to Eastern thought or Hinduism, it is very puzzling. It's very puzzling. How can you reconcile both and practice both at the same time? Advaita Vedanta and the worship of images, devotion to God. But actually, it is possible, and there is no conflict. So when we want to speak about his life, we find that there is a problem, because nobody wrote a biography in his lifetime. Although he was such a great personality, his disciples did not really record the main events in Shankaracharya's life. Perhaps nobody expected him to die so young. That may be the reason why. So there were no biographies in his time. And then the biographies that have come down to us, they were written much later. And they're mixed up with a lot of mythology, supernatural things. So much so that it's really, like Brother Shankara said yesterday, something like you have to suspend your rational mind when you read the life, something like that. Because it's hard to believe all the stories that are included in that biography. But, so we have to, we study it, and it's very inspiring, but we don't know. We don't know what is, how much is myth and how much is real. So there are 10 Digvijayas. Digvijaya is the name of the biography. Vijaya means conquest, and Dig means the 4 cardinal points of the compass. In other words, conquest of the whole world in all directions. He was victorious in all directions. You know, he traveled all over India, and he debated with the greatest scholars of the time, and he was always successful in proving his Advaita Vedanta philosophy against all the other schools. So it is called Digvijaya for that reason. So there are 10 of those, or there were 10 biographies of Shankaracharya. 2 have been lost. We don't know anything about them. 3 remain in manuscript form, and 5 were published. So of those 5, one of our Swamis translated one, and Swami Tapasyananda. And that is the one we normally follow. And he, in his introduction, from the very start, he makes a point to clarify this. He says, "We present this translation not because we consider it a biography in the modern sense of the word, but because we don't have anything better to offer." So he's very honest from the beginning. We don't have anything better to offer regarding his life and his work. So, keeping that in mind, we study the life of Shankaracharya. He was born at a difficult time in India. Buddhism had arisen many years earlier as a reaction to the ritualism prevailing. The Vedic religion was very ritualistic, and the common people were being left out of that religion, were being exploited by the priestly class. So Buddha, he reacted to that. He was a Hindu, but he was a reformer, you can say. He said, we should make religion available to everybody, spirituality available to everybody. You don't need an intermediary to practice spirituality. You don't need a priest. You can do it yourself. So Buddha was very revolutionary in that sense. But by the time Shankaracharya was born, Buddhism was already in decadence. More than 1,000 years had passed. And there were lots of people living in the Buddhist monasteries who were not really living spiritual lives. There was a lot of Tantra that had been mixed up with Buddhism. And so when Shankaracharya was born, this was going on. On one hand, there was a kind of decadent Buddhism. On the other hand, the ritualistic religion was still going on. And then Hinduism was divided into so many sects, and they all quarreled.
Yeah.
The worshippers of Shiva said, only Shiva is true. And the worshippers of Shakti, of the Divine Mother, only the Divine Mother is true. And so on and so forth. Krishna, Ganesh, whatever. you can think of. They are all quarreling among themselves that only my religion is true. So it felt as if they are not the same religion. They are not the Vedic religion anymore. They are not Hinduism anymore. They are like different religions because they are so antagonistic between themselves. So in that kind of environment, Shankaracharya was born. It's like to fix that situation, that prophet was born. So his father and mother, Shivaguru and Aryamba, they were poor Brahmins and they had no children. They lived in Kerala, in Kalari, a small village in the south of India. So, like is the custom in those days and even today in India, if you don't have children, you go to the temple and pray. That's to make sure not only that you get children, but you get good ones. Having children is not enough. Can be a lot of trouble also. So I want a child and I want a good child. So I go to the temple, and they go to the temple on the hill, the Shiva temple, and they pray to Shiva for a child. And Shiva is pleased with their prayers, and he appears to them and says, you can have a child, and you have two options. He may be omniscient, but short-lived. Or he may be a normal kid, and he will live long. It is your choice. So the parents said, we want a child who will be omniscient. It doesn't matter if he is short-lived. So that is also very significant. It is like in that environment, in that culture of the Brahmins, wisdom is appreciated more than life itself. Mm-hmm. What is the use of having a long life if I don't have wisdom? I would rather have a short life with wisdom. The same idea, when we speak of moksha, we want to be liberated from this world. We want to be free. We don't want to come back and be born again. It's a very common theme. If you ask any devotee of Vedanta or Buddhist also, why do you practice? Oh, because I don't want to be reborn. This world is full of suffering. I want liberation. I want to be free. But then, if we have wisdom, if we have the right understanding, what is wrong with this world? It is only because we are not wise, because we suffer, that we don't want to be born. Sri Ramakrishna used to say, the ordinary jiva is afraid of this world. They want to get out. But the illumined soul is not afraid. Swami Vivekananda said, may I be born again and again and suffer thousands of miseries if I can help one person. So another thing Sri Ramakrishna said, giving an example of a game they used to play. I don't understand the game, but he said, when you're playing this game, if you're not an expert, you want to win quickly and get out and be safe. But if you're an expert player, you are not afraid. You know you can get it, throw the dice and you will get whatever you want. So he says an illumined soul is like an expert player. They are not afraid of this world anymore. Anyway, they prefer a child who will be wise, even though short-lived. So they say that he was born as a partial manifestation of Shiva. That is why he was called Shankara. Because he was born as a result of Shiva's boon. So they say the year was 788. And so he was a very precocious child. He was a Shruti Dhara, they call it. Shruti means hearing. Dhara means holding. You hear something once and you hold it forever. That is the characteristic of a Shruti Dhara. So he was like that. Whatever you teach him, he only needs to hear it once and he remembers it forever. So such was his intellectual power. So as a child, he very quickly became proficient in all the things that needed to be learned. His father passed away when he was very young, so he was brought up by his mother. And he was very fond of his mother, very, very close to her. They say that at the age of 5, he started his education. By the age of 16, it was all over. And he became famous. Like, look at this guy, 16 years old, and he knows whatever you ask him, he will know. So the king heard about this prodigy, that this child is very wise. He knows everything. He has mastered all the sciences. So he sends a messenger with an elephant as a gift. Tell this boy to come to the court. And Shankaracharya receives the messenger and says, what will I do with an elephant? I'm a brahmachari. So he says, if the king wants to see me, he can come here, but I won't go. So the king has to come, even though he's the king. He has to come. And he comes and offers him gold coins. And again, Shankaracharya says, I'm a brahmachari. What will I do with the gold coins? Give it to the poor. So from a very early age, he had not only wisdom, but also renunciation, the spiritual qualities. So the story goes that one day he went to the river to bathe. His mother was nearby, and he was caught by a crocodile. He got his leg. And the mother was nearby. She saw what was happening. So Shankaracharya shouted to her that, Mother, I'm dying. Please allow me to take sannyasa, to become a monk. Because she knew that he wanted to become a monk, but she didn't want him because she was alone. He was a poor Brahmin widow. But what happens now? The crocodile called my son. It looks like he will die. How can she say no to him? So she gives him permission. And so Shankaracharya repeats some mantras and becomes a sannyasi, then and there. There are such things that you can repeat some mantras and give sannyas to yourself. So he becomes a sannyasi, and the crocodile lets him be, goes away. So the mother now, she understands the divine Leela. I have been tricked. That now you cannot take it back. Once you become a sannyasi, there's no going back. And so now she finds that my boy has survived and he now is a sannyasi. So she tells him that when I die, at least you will have to do my funeral rites. And he agrees. Although sannyasis are not supposed to do it, but he makes an exception. He says, yes, mother, I will come and do your last rites. So he's a sannyasi, he cannot stay at home. So he goes out of home and goes on foot, because of course in those days the choice was bullock cart or walking. So he goes walking to the Narmada, and there he finds a sage. He is Govindapad, and he was in Samadhi. And then and there, Shankaracharya composes a hymn on the glory of the Guru. And it is as if he brings him back from his Samadhi. He comes to the normal plane of consciousness. And he recognizes Shankaracharya as his successor, as a great prophet. So he accepts him as his disciple and begins to train him in all the monastic, life and teachings. So he trains him for 3 years, and then he sends him to Benares, because Benares was the seat of learning. If you're a scholar, you have to go to Benares. If you want to defend your philosophy, your school of thought, you have to go to Benares. Everything is happening in Benares, as far as scholars is concerned and philosophy is concerned. So this ancient city, he goes there and he starts preaching and making disciples and establishing his own school of thought. But he had some difficulty reconciling this idea of the transcendental Brahman, the ultimate reality, and this empirical universe of multiplicity. How can they coexist? You know, he was of the idea that the world is unreal. And but then there is something going on. You know, he left his mother behind in Kalari. So is that completely unreal, or there is some reality? So he thought the world is completely unreal. But he had still not reached the full, ripe understanding of it. So in Benares, a few incidents happened that make him grasp this idea better. One of the incidents is he goes to the Ganges to bathe. And when he finishes his bath, he's coming out of the river, and he encounters a widow with her husband's dead body across the steps. So he cannot just walk over the dead body because he just finished his Ganges bath, and this would be, is considered impure. So it is very logical for him to say, please move a little so that I can pass. That's normal. So he tells the widow, please move the body a little so that I can pass. And she says to him, why don't you tell him to move? And he says, how can I tell the dead body to move? It is dead. If it had energy to move, then it would be alive. It is dead. Then the woman says, but yes, aren't you the one who teaches only one exists and nothing else? If only one exists and nothing else, then this can move. Just tell him to move. Then what does she say to him? In nature, everything moves and changes. If nature can do all this by itself, without anything conscious involved, then certainly the dead body will be able to move a few steps. Because that was the idea, like there is a clear-cut distinction between nature and consciousness. And nature is like unreal. Then she's telling, well, if it is just doing it by itself, without any conscious principle, then the body will be able to move by itself. That makes Shankara think that yes, we call this world unreal, but there is some connection with consciousness. At some level they are connected. I cannot just dismiss this world as entirely unreal. There is some connection with consciousness. And then this lady and the corpse disappeared. And the story goes that it was the Divine Mother teaching him that lesson. And then after that, Shankaracharya acknowledges the power of Brahman in this universe, Shakti. So the Divine Mother, or Prakriti, or nature, is Brahman's power. Like Sri Ramakrishna said, is like fire and the power to burn. You cannot say they are separate. You cannot say they are two different things. They go together. Without the power to burn, fire is not fire. So milk is white. Try to separate milk from its whiteness, and you cannot. They go together because milk is white. So like that, Brahman and Shakti are inseparable. So this universe is the manifestation of Shakti, the power of Brahman. Not exactly Brahman, but the power of Brahman. So like this very subtle fine-tuning of his philosophy he is doing through these experiences. The second story is he's finishing his bath in the Ganges again, and then he's going to the temple of Vishwanath in Benares. So you can imagine he's nice and fresh and purified and going to the temple. And then he encounters an untouchable. He is coming just along the road with 4 dogs to make it even worse. Because dogs are considered like impure in those days, at least. Because dogs are messy, I guess. You know, they do dirty things. I don't know why, but anyway, this was an untouchable. That means a very low caste person. And in those days, society was such in India that they could not even walk close to a Brahmin. It was like an offense, like an insult. So they had to keep a good distance from a Brahmin. So this was how society worked. And so this untouchable is coming with 4 dogs, and Shankaracharya kind of motions to him, like, okay, enough, you know, now you can, don't proceed any further. And this untouchable, who normally would have been very humble and just shying away from him, you know, like he doesn't want to get a curse from a Brahmin, that's the last thing he wants. So instead of that, he keeps walking. And he tells him, who are you addressing? Who are you telling to move away? Are you speaking to me as a physical body? Is it a physical body talking to another physical body? The body is made up of food, and so is yours. The body is made up of the 5 elements, so is yours. So how are we different? How can you tell me to move away if your body is the same as mine? We are made of the same, the body is made up of the same material. And if you are talking from the point of view of the Atman, that is omnipresent, if you're talking to me from that point of view, that you are the Atman and I am the Atman, then where can I move? It is omnipresent. Shankaracharya was amazed. This untouchable is teaching me philosophy? He could not believe it. So he was like trying to process all this, you know, all this information. And then this untouchable disappears. It was Shiva teaching him a lesson. And then he, in that situation, he, after that incident, he composed the Manisha Panchakam, where he says, if an untouchable, if he knows Brahman, he is my guru. He is not an untouchable, he is my guru. In other words, purity or impurity is based on our spiritual attainment, on our spiritual evolution, not on our social status or achievements. So he gets that understanding. It's a very powerful statement in those days to say an untouchable is my guru for a Brahmin. So he got that understanding from that incident. So he understands that this world cannot be dismissed as entirely unreal. There is some reality. Even for an Advaiti, there is some reality in this world. And he realizes that there are 2 planes of consciousness, 2, you can say, points of view. How do you want to look upon the world? Or how do you want to look upon existence? He says there are 2 points of view. One is Vyavaharika, that is the practical point of view, our empirical reality. From that point of view, we are in the world of multiplicity. We are in an embodied state and all that. We are in time and space. But from the Paramarthika point of view, the highest point of view, we are Brahman, we are the Atman, we are the self, we are immortal, we are beyond time and space. So this is how you reconcile this devotion and knowledge, the path of jnana, that we say in Vedanta, we believe we are the Atman, we are free, we are divine. Then you say, but how come, you know, I have backache? Or how come I am sad I lost my job? I am Brahman, It shouldn't bother me at all. But the reason is that we are looking, yes, we are Brahman. We still believe it, but we are caught in this relative plane. So we are looking from the point of view of relativity. But as we evolve, this absolute, this unity of existence and our own divinity becomes more and more manifest. It kind of percolates our ordinary experience more and more. Yes, I am not a physical body, I'm not a mind. I am really something else, something deeper. We may not know what it is, but we get more and more intuition that yes, I'm something deeper. And that intuition becomes stronger and stronger, and eventually it becomes the reality. It becomes an experience. So then his life story continues. He goes to Badrikashrama in the Himalayas. He spends 4 years there, and he writes all the commentaries that he wrote, wonderful treatises on the Upanishads, on the Gita, on the Brahma Sutras. These are very important works that they are studied even today. In the Ramakrishna order, we study all this, or at least we are supposed to study all these commentaries. It is not exactly the same as Sri Ramakrishna's teaching, but it's a very important aspect of the Vedanta tradition. It helps to understand it. So after that, he starts his Digvijaya, his pilgrimage. He wants to establish this idea. He wants to reform things, to put an end to all the fights and quarrels within the Vedic religion. So he goes all over India, walking from the north to the south and back to the north several times. And he meets scholars, all the big intellectuals of the time, and he debates with them. And he always wins. He was such a scholar and a sage. The most famous debate is with Mandana Mishra, and they have a famous debate. And the agreement was the loser will adopt the way of life of the winner. So Shankaracharya was a monk, and Mandana Mishra was a layperson with a family. If Shankaracharya loses, he has to become a family man and get married. If Mandana Mishra loses, he has to become a monk and give up his home. So it goes on for many days, and there are many things that happen during that debate. In the end, Mandana Mishra is defeated. So he honors his promise, and he becomes a disciple of Shankaracharya, becomes a monk. So that's one of the famous instances of all these debates that go on during his pilgrimage. So in the year 820, he was only 32 years old. He's in the Himalayas, and he starts wandering, and he's never seen again. That's the end of the story as far as his biography goes. So the subject announced was his life and achievements. So we spoke about his life a little. What about his achievements? Teachings and legacy. So as we said earlier, there were 3 movements in his time. You had the ritualists. The priests still controlled that aspect of religion. And they used to perform sacrifices for anything you wanted. You want prosperity? This sacrifice. Do you want to get married? That sacrifice. You want to go to heaven? This sacrifice. So whether you wanted a worldly thing or the welfare of your relatives after death or whatever it was, there was a sacrifice for everything. So that was the priestly religion. Then you had the scholars who left out the common people. They debated in Sanskrit about all these higher things, and they twisted the scriptures to suit their ends, so that to make sure that the common people kept them well fed and they didn't have to do anything. So that was another part of the religious movement, the scholars. And then you had the Buddhists. But as we said earlier, it was kind of in decadence at that time. So he unified all the different sects of Hinduism that were quarreling, that they were making the Vedic religion very weak because there was no unity. There was no unity of purpose. They didn't feel like we follow the Vedic religion. They felt, I am a Shaivite, or I am a Vaishnavite. So with Shankaracharya's influence, they came back to feeling, I am a Hindu first, and then I worship Shiva, and then I worship Krishna. So this was a very important contribution. So he wrote more than 150 books, some of them on philosophy, some of them poems, some of them spiritual precepts, advice, how to live a spiritual life. So that was a big contribution, his literary work. Then he introduced the Pancha Ayatana Puja, the simultaneous worship of 5 deities in his monasteries. And again, the objective was to bring all these different sects together. If there's a monastery and they are worshiping all the 5 main deities at the same time, so that creates some precedent of unity. From that you can build on. And so Ganesh, Shiva, the Devi, mother, and then Surya and Vishnu. These were the 5 deities that would be worshipped simultaneously in his monasteries. And he said, all these different gods and goddesses, they are all equally real. Not that one is greater than the other. All are equally real. They are all manifestations of the same Brahman. So with Brahman as the substratum, anybody can be a god. Jesus can be an avatar, Krishna can be an avatar, Buddha can be an avatar. So this is the solutions to religious hatred. Because who can prove that only Allah is the greatest, or only Jesus Christ is the greatest? It's a matter of preference. It's a matter of my background, my upbringing. So I was taught as a child that Jesus Christ is the only God, so I believe it. And then I fight with somebody who says, no, Shiva is the only God. And who is the judge to tell who is real and who is unreal, who is true, who is better and who is worse? So this is the solution. Hey, there is one God, and that is impersonal, and that is called Brahman, or whatever you want to call it, nameless. And all these other gods, they are just manifestations of that. There is one ocean, and there are infinite waves. You can call it a wave, or you can call it whatever you like. It just rises in the water. It's a name and a form. What is real? The water. You can focus on the name and form of the wave, or you can focus on the water. But having that idea of the water in the background, that solves the problem of religious hatred. To accept Brahman as the ultimate reality. So that he did. That was a huge contribution to the Vedic religion, that he could bring them together with this idea. So you can see that there's no conflict between the dualistic religion and the monistic religion. The religion that says there is only one God, and the religion that says that God is personal and we can worship. Yes, God is both. God is impersonal and personal. And you choose whatever you like. So he also, as we said earlier, he reconciled jnana and bhakti, devotion and knowledge. And I feel that that was the need of the time, probably, in Shankara's time. And I feel that Swami Vivekananda in modern times, he threw karma into the mix. Because Shankaracharya, when you read his works, it is as if he looks down on karma. He says, through work, even 1,000,000 years, you can never attain the knowledge of Brahman. It cannot be attained through work. The idea is the infinite cannot be attained by finite means. By doing this and that, you cannot attain the infinite. Just by waving a light, repeating your rosary, you're trying to attain the infinite. It doesn't make any sense. But Swami Vivekananda, in modern times, he says, Karma Yoga also will give you the knowledge of Brahman. So every prophet has a contribution to make. He reconciled jnana and bhakti, devotion and knowledge. And the last contribution that we already mentioned is organizing the monastic tradition, Dashanami Sampradaya. All these monks that were wandering all over India, he created 10 different orders, and he founded monasteries in the 4 quarters of India. Puri in the east, Dwaraka in the west, Badrikashrama in the north, and Sringeri in the south. So these are the 4 Shankaracharya mats, Shankaracharya monasteries. They exist to this day, and there are Shankaracharyas living in this monastery, spiritual teachers. You can go and meet them even today. That Guru Parampara, that unbroken lineage of sages continues to this day, from 1200 years ago. So that is the influence, that he could set it up and it continued. It didn't die after him. It was such a real contribution that continues to this day. So these are a few points that we can mention about Shankara's life and contribution. Now, regarding his teachings, if we have a few minutes, we can mention something about his teachings. Although he was a poet, although he was a mystic, his main teaching was non-duality, Advaita Vedanta. And what is the teaching of non-duality? Brahma Satyam Jagan Mithya. Brahman is real, or God is real, or the ultimate reality is real. And the world is unreal. This is the most famous sentence in Advaita. This is the essence. If you have to choose one sentence to describe non-dual spirituality, it would be this one. That God alone is real and the world is unreal. So let us try to analyze a little. 3 things are mentioned. Brahma, or God. And then there's a second part of the sentence, Jiva Brahmaiva Napara. The Jiva is nothing but Brahman. So this is the whole sentence. Brahma Satyam Jagan Mithya, Jiva Brahmaiva Napara. So the Jiva is the human being, the living being, is nothing but Brahman, but God. So the whole sentence is, only God is real, the world is unreal, the living being is nothing but God. So it's a very radical statement. It would be so blasphemous for most religions to say first that the world is unreal. You must be crazy. Second, only God is real, and I am God. I mean, how crazy is that? So it's very easy to misunderstand this idea. It goes really against the teachings of most religions. How can, first of all, the world be unreal? Explain that to me. And then how come you are God and I am God? Even Swami Vivekananda had a hard time understanding. He made fun of Sri Ramakrishna's teachings. What do you mean? This cup is God, this saucer is God, this pen is God. He was laughing. And Sri Ramakrishna said, oh, I see. He touched him. Boom. Swami Vivekananda is God. So he said, what are you doing to me? Sri Ramakrishna had the power to raise people's consciousness with a mere touch. So then Swami Vivekananda said, oh, there is something to what he's saying. I shouldn't make fun of it. But in the beginning, he was ridiculing Sri Ramakrishna. That how ludicrous is this? Everything is God. But for a sage of realization, for an illumined soul, when they are in a certain state of consciousness, they see everything. They see consciousness pervading everything, animate and inanimate. It's all consciousness. But it's a matter of experience. So this world, how is it unreal? There are two words in Sanskrit to describe unreal: asat and mithya. Asat is something that is truly unreal, you can say. That means there is no essence to it, there is no reality. For instance, the example they give, like the horns of a hare or a rabbit. You will never see a rabbit with horns. So it doesn't exist and we don't see it. Like a castle in the air. You will never see a castle floating in the air. So it doesn't exist and you will never see it. That is asat. But there is another type of unreality. It doesn't exist, but we see it. And that is mithya. That is the word used here. So, a mirage. You're driving on the road, there's a hot day, the sun is reflected, and you see very clearly water at the end of the road. And you keep driving, and the water is still there, and you never get there. You may drive the whole day, and you still see the water. So that is the nature of a mirage. And it's a fact that you see. It's an optical illusion that we see the water. But also it's a fact that the water is not there. It doesn't exist. This is mithya. It doesn't exist, but we see it. And this is what is meant, but this world isn't real. This is the word we use. It is not real as we see it. We see multiplicity. It's only unity. So as we see it is not real. You know, the typical example that everybody heard about is the rope and the snake. And it's such a wonderful example. I mean, we all heard it, but it is dark and there is a rope. And when I look at it, I see a snake. So I get afraid. Then I go to get my flashlight and I point it to the snake and I see, oh, it was just a rope. So the snake disappeared. But earlier I saw the snake. The snake was real, even though it did not exist. So they say, this world is like that. We see this world. When we become illumined, we see Brahman. And then where does this world go? Where does it go? It's the same as asking, where does the snake go? When you see the rope, where did the snake go? It was never there. It was, we are perceiving it in a wrong way. So Vedanta says the same thing with this universe that appears to be so real. Yes, we are seeing it, so it's real. We can feel it. But when we become illumined, just like that snake that doesn't go anywhere, this world doesn't go anywhere. It's just perceived as for what it really is, Brahman or God. So that is how it says God alone is real. It's like saying that the rope alone is real and the snake isn't real. So you see the world, but it's only God. So the whole of creation is God, and I am part of that creation. So the logical conclusion is I am also God. I am not out of that creation. I am part of this universe. So if everything is Brahman, I cannot be the only thing left out. So I am part of that creation. I am also Brahman. So that is in a nutshell, what Shankaracharya teaches in his Advaita Vedanta. Okay, we have more or less completed the talk for today. Now I want to hear your ideas. What do you say? Is it real or unreal?
Not really.
Right. You know, there are such people, you don't need to be illumined. Like yesterday we were reading, hold on to the awareness that you are the Atman. That was one of the disciplines that Shankaracharya suggested. We can, like, it's like a neti thing. Like, I'm not this, I'm not that. At least we can try to put a little distance between ourselves and the world. It's a little buffer that can I just step back and witness without getting too involved. So that is, in a sense, like holding on to some higher awareness. But we forget and we get too engrossed in it. Yeah, you're going to say something. Were you going to say something?
No, my question was, like you mentioned, Shankaracharya's contribution was combining bhakti and knowledge.
One of them, yeah.
So, can you explain what he did on that?
Yes. He, as we mentioned, he first of all composed all those beautiful songs and hymns to gods and goddesses. If he didn't believe in bhakti, I mean, why would he do that? He's an illumined soul. He's an Advaiting. Why would he compose hymns to gods and goddesses? It doesn't seem to make any sense to me. Unless he believes that there are personal gods and we can worship them and we can sing their praises and develop love for them. That is one thing, all the literature that he produced. The second one is introducing the worship of ritualistic worship of God. When you go to the Shankara monasteries, they worship the Divine Mother. And if you're an out and out Advaiting, why would you worship the Divine Mother? So there is this harmony between ritualistic worship and singing of stotras and hymns and songs, and together with that, cultivating the idea that I am the Atman, or at least believing that the ultimate reality is Brahman and I am one with it. Intellectually, we all agree on that in Vedanta. So that to me is proof that he harmonized, bhakti and jnana. He may not have written treatises on that, but just by introducing the worship and composing the songs, and even in Viveka Chudamani, he starts by bowing down to the lotus feet of the Guru. Now, if you say the world is unreal, then there's no need of a Guru. You know, in the most extreme type of Advaita, who is the Guru? Who is the disciple? The most extreme part, sect, you can say, of Advaita, they believe the world was never created. It never existed. There is such school of thought. Yes.
There are a few points I wanted to make.
Okay.
I hope you can patiently listen.
Okay.
Number one, the word mithya
Uh-huh.
is so difficult to translate a Sanskrit word because it has many, many shades.
Mm-hmm.
And mithya, unreal, is only one shade.
Mm-hmm.
Mithya also could be useless, meaningless, unsubstantial.
Yeah.
So these all are compact into mithya.
Yes.
So unreal is too much of a simplistic translation of mithya. Number two, I was thinking that whatever you said about the untouchable, it brought to my mind that this is a distinct, undesirable quality of human beings in general. Because what we did to the untouchables in India, the Western society here did it to the lepers.
Mm-hmm.
They had to go in the street by raising their hands and say, "We are unclean, we are unclean." They had to keep on speaking so that the others go away from them. We have to, leprosy is not that contagious a disease, but still they had to choose where they want to die when they were alive. And this will be helped by the priest of the church, but distance. Number three, when you said about Mandan Mishra, of course, in a very short time, you have concisely put everything together. But one story which needs to be brought up, that when Mandan Mishra was defeated by Shankaracharya, his wife challenged Me Too movement. That was the first Me Too movement.
Yeah.
That thing.
Well, I didn't want to include that. I
Yeah.
thought it wasn't in good taste.
Yes. But she said, you have only one half of Mandan Mishra. I'm the other half. So then they had multiple engagements for multiple days, and then finally couple was defeated.
Mm-hmm.
So these are the few things I would just wanted to add.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Very good, very good. Yeah, in Sanskrit the words will have many meanings. Yes.
Shankaracharya never commented on Islam and Christianity,
Mm-hmm.
although these religions were supposedly existent at his time.
You're right.
So could it be possible that he was born for Christ? Because some scholars believe that.
Well, it was a different world. It was a different world. There was not so much mobility between people living in different places. And South India was, isolated, like it was never conquered by the Muslims. So it has remained pretty much undisturbed for hundreds of years. So I wouldn't be surprised. I mean, and also society was a closed society. If you were a Hindu, you wouldn't feel any need or any inclination to find out about strangers who come and they may be Muslims or some I don't know, some merchants or something that are from a different country. I wouldn't be surprised that he never commented. It's like parallel universes. What's going on in Palestine and what's going on in India in those days. I don't know. It's possible that he lived before Christ. I don't deny it. Although the consensus seems to be that he lived around 800 or so.
You said he had studied the Buddhists. Did he ever talk about Buddha or Mara or how he felt about them?
I don't know. He may have written something, but Buddhism was different because he was living with the Buddhists. They were part of society. So I wouldn't be surprised if he wrote, and he certainly, as we said, he took many ideas from Buddhism that he found good, like organizing the monastic orders and all that. That he got that idea from Buddhism. So Buddhism, yes. Yeah.
I have a few observations.
Okay.
First, it's one of the most lucid explanation of Shankara's philosophy, Shankara's life, and thank you very much for that.
Mm-hmm.
I think in shortest time, it was absolutely simply and yet very profoundly covered the material. Second, about how I feel listening to you, I think Shankara's life is less radical than his teaching.
Mm-hmm.
His teaching about Brahma Satya Jagan Mithya,
Mm-hmm.
whichever way people interpret Mithya in various ways. But probably his Advaita principle, that this is the only, Brahman is the only real and all others are Mithya, it's a wrong kind of impression on non-Hindus, because they think that it is either this or that. Although the way you explained becomes clear that in the ultimate sense, both are combined, and one can exist with the other idea, that this is how you look at it, it is not the, but ultimately it is Advaita. according to Shankara, there is self. Self is real. According to Buddhists, there is no self. In his debates during his time, was this issue brought up? Self versus non-self in Buddhists. That's what I wanted to.
I think so. I think in those days it was the matter of the scholars. They used to debate and discuss all these things, and it was the fashion of the day to be a scholar and defeat the other scholar, and then you became. It was like the rock star of the day.
Yeah. Sorry.
So
Rock literature.
yeah. So yeah, I think so. You know, there's a story that Buddha and Shankara went on a boat ride, and they went to the middle of the river, and Buddha looked up and said, Shunyam, Shunyam. And Shankara looked down and said, Purnam, Purnam. So it is empty. He looked at the sky and said, it's empty, emptiness. There is nothing. There's no self. And Shankara looks at the water and says, it's full. It's full. It's only the self. So that explains that both philosophies, they are looking at the same thing from different angles. I mean, there is the sky and there is the water. You can look up or down. It's your choice.
Yeah, because what is empty is potentially ready for being filled.
Well, look, if you have infinity, and you call it empty, it's infinite emptiness.
Yeah.
And if you have infinity, and you call it full, it's infinite fullness. I don't see any problem.
Exactly.
It's still infinite. Yeah.
You know, wonderful talk. Thank you so much. And, you know, Advaita Vedanta is so intellectually stimulating and wonderful to listen and hear. And, you know, when we hear and listen all this, and then we think about it, and then after a couple of hours we forget it. My understanding is that, you know, in our path, we have mantra japa, which is so solid, which we can hold on and practice and move on. And you touched based upon that one idea that to practice actually is to be a witness, like you said. So what something which you have used from Advaita Vedanta, which it has helped you as a practice all these years, which we all can use day to day, every day, without forgetting it going forward?
Well, you see, the thing is, first of all, is these things are very subjective. So something will work for one person and not for another. You know, we try different things and we find out what worked for us, and then we have our own temperament. We are all different. So keeping that in mind, I find that repeating the mantra is really the main thing for most of us who have a mantra. So that is the main thing. But then in the course of the day, it's hard to keep up that mood at all times. It's like sometimes you feel like doing something different. So like for instance, I go for a walk, and yes, I may repeat my mantra, but I may also just practice awareness. And if you're walking in a busy street with lots of traffic and noise, it may be difficult. But if you're walking in the woods, somewhere solitary, try to feel some presence. There is a presence if we can tune into that. So that for me is a kind of impersonal practice. It's not that I am looking for a light or, you know, it's a presence. That's how I would describe it. It's a presence that is felt most when we are alone in a quiet environment. That's my experience. If we are alone in a quiet environment, it is just us and whatever is around us, that presence. I find that helpful. That I consider it a kind of impersonal practice of kind of Advaita, to feel a presence. It is, you know, nothing but Sri Ramakrishna, but it is an impersonal Ramakrishna. You know, one Swami said that for me, Ramakrishna is not a Brahmin priest who used to live in Dakshineshwar. He's not, I don't think of him with the form, with the body. For me, Ramakrishna is a presence. So as we evolve, our idea of our Ishta changes. It doesn't need to stay the same all the time. Our understanding changes, yeah.
This may be a little tangential, but it has been a question in my mind for a while.
Mm-hmm.
You mentioned that Shankaracharya valued, and we as Hindus value renunciation.
Mm-hmm.
When somebody has renounced, we see them as a higher being.
Mm-hmm.
Asceticism is similar.
Yes.
We attach a higher value to it. But there is also the sense of abundance, that you want to ensure the welfare of the living beings. That may be your family, it may be your community, it may be your nation. And to do that, you need resource. And then you can paint it as materialism.
Mm-hmm.
Because the more material wealth you create for welfare, the more you seem to be going away from asceticism and renunciation. How do you resolve this dichotomy and still be spiritual?
Yeah, well, it's a good question. The thing is, everything has a flip side, and everything taken to extreme can change. So somebody said, I can't remember the saying exactly, but it's something like human beings have the capacity to spoil even the best things. So even spirituality we can spoil. You know, like renunciation, we can make a mockery out of it. So renunciation could be laziness. Renunciation could be cowardice. And prosperity could be just karma yoga, just a way to help others. You know, Swami Vivekananda said, the best ashrama is grihastha, the householder. The best ashrama, the best stage in life is grihastha, because he supports the other three. It is the grihastha. Why I can live happily in a monastery without working? It's because the devotees are maintaining that monastery. Otherwise, where will we be? We don't work, we don't earn any money. So it is the householder, the family person, who is maintaining society. All the people who retire, they get their benefits through the tax paid by the people who are still working. So they say that will be a big problem in future, because a lot of pensioners and fewer people working. So it is the working people who are maintaining all the others in society. So, you know, anything can be, any extreme, anything to the extreme can, if you are, say, you're fulfilling your duties as a family person, you have your wife, you have your kids, so it is your duty to maintain them. Vedanta will not say anything against that. It's your duty. You're supposed to do it. Now, how far will you go? That's the thing. You can devote your whole life to earning money. Every free moment can be devoted to that. There are such people for whom money is everything. Yes. And they cannot switch it off. They are at home, the machine is still churning. How can I make more money? They go to the office, it's like there's no break. And they're very good at it. So the more you earn, the more you want, and it continues until one day they die. That's it. But so it's up to us to find, it's a fine line, you know, my duty and my responsibilities, and it's all very good, but how about my peace of mind? That also should be taken into account. My duties and my peace of mind, all together. I am here to support others, but I should not do harm to myself in the process. So it's hard to balance. There is no right or answer to your question, you know, how you solve this problem. Each one has to find out for themselves. But I think if we are sincere about our spiritual practice, this intuitively we can resolve these things. Like if we do our spiritual practices, we can feel that, oh, if I work too hard, then I don't have peace of mind. I'm thrown off my balance. I need to balance my activities. So we have to figure that out ourselves. And we do. With the passing of time, we get better at it, how to figure things out.
That is why your statement that Ishta can be changing is very, very true. Because basically the translated word Ishta means something which is desire.
Mm-hmm.
If the desires keep on changing,
yes,
then the object of the desire can keep on changing too. So that there is a lot of plasticity in that one. But I was also thinking the reason why Shankaracharya, Adi Shankaracharya, the one, is very harsh because he saw that some of the evils are so deeply ingrained in the society that unless he whips them, people will not awaken.
mm-hmm.
But the Westerners say, what hurts instructs.
Mm.
The same philosophy. That is why he has looked very negatively on the body, on the samsara. What is my wife? What is brother? What is father? Etc. Etc. I mean, it's a object of despise. The body, the way he puts one time. But on the other side, the same one in Divyaparada Kshamapan Sutra, he starts by na mantram, no yantram, tadapi cha na jane stutimau, na chavanam, na dhyanam, na cha jane stutikata. Beyond everything. Same man, because he's pleomorphic. But he is convinced about every contradiction that he generates. That is the beauty of this great guru.
Yeah.
Didn't he write in the 6 shlokas? Na mantro, na tirtha, na veda, na yagna. So none of these. Don't go to all these pilgrimage places. Don't do this, that ritual, that. Everything is
Well, that's what we were talking about earlier.
Yeah.
Shivoham.
Shiva.
So I am Shiva. So what he's telling is that's Shankaracharya in those days, that no karma will bring this about.
Yeah.
That you are Shiva already. Why go on pilgrimage? Why, perform pujas and rituals? You are Shiva. But Swami Vivekananda kind of updated that concept. He updated for our present time.
Because it was too radical, too one-sided sometimes.
Yeah, but the same Shankara says, Gatistvam, Gatistvam.
Exactly.
To the Divine Mother, you are my goal, Divine Mother. So yeah, it seems as if there are two different people teaching.
Mm-hmm.
And regarding the body, yes, it's all very negative, but Sri Ramakrishna said it's the temple of God. You should take care of it. God dwells in the body. And Sri Krishna says also, not for those who eat too much or too little, or work too hard or don't work at all, or sleep too much or too little. So it's the middle path. That's the teaching of the Gita. So all this, excessive harshness of the body is this, the body is that. Why bother about the body at all? I mean, it's of no consequence. Why should you bother about the body? It's focus on God. The body will exist. It will get older, and there's nothing to really pay attention to the body, because it is even in the Christian tradition.
Yeah.
When I went to Avila, you will see all the things that Saint Teresa used to use to whip herself, and a wooden block for a pillow, and they're still there, all these things, and you think, well, this is kind of not current nowadays. This is not what really matters. This is not what really matters.
As Swami Vivekananda mentioned about Shankara.
Oh yeah, many places. Oh yeah, it's full of Shankaracharya. His Jnana Yoga lectures, full of Shankaracharya. But he has put his own spin on Shankaracharya. It is Vivekananda speaking. But you see, you cannot get away from Shankaracharya. His contribution is so vast. When you want to speak of Vedanta, you can't get away from it. Yeah.
Swami Sarvapriyananda.
Uh-huh.
So his take on practice of renunciation in this day and age is more mental renunciation than physical renunciation. So he was like, doesn't matter what job you are in, what world you live in, a monk mind is necessary. So doesn't necessarily mean giving up your responsibilities or giving up your actions or giving up your duties, but not expecting the fruits of those actions.
Yeah.
So he was talking about how in this day and age, mental renunciation is more important than physical renunciation.
It's true. It's true. But that is also what the Gita taught long ago. You know, like you give up the fruit of action. And that's all you have to do. So then this is from the time of Krishna, it comes down to us. That he says that sense enjoyments fall from the abstinent person, but not the liking for them, not the taste for them. But for the illumined person, even that taste falls away. Beautiful language.
Yes.
Can you repeat the last what you just said?
Yes. I can't remember the Sanskrit, I used to know it, but basically he says that objects fall away from a renouncing person. Like Dehinaha. Yes. Rasavarjam rasopyasya.
Yes.
Yeah. Anyway, I have forgotten the whole verse. So a person who renounces, the objects fall away from them, like you stay away from the objects of enjoyment. But that liking for them persists, even in the person who has renounced. But for a person who has attained illumination, even that taste is gone. So there is not even mental conflict, mental struggle. For an ordinary person who renounces, that tendency is still there for enjoyment. And there is a mental struggle. But for an illumined soul, that mental struggle even is not there.
I think Saint Tukaram says that there is no trace of any desires found in me now. There is a beautiful verse. I don't know the Prakrit Malayalam, but that's what he says.
Yeah.
Even if I try to find a trace of it, there is not the desires, but not even the trace of the desires
Yeah.
found.
Vishayam vinivartante niraharasya dehinaha. Rasavarjam rasopyasya param drishtva nivartate. That's the verse.
Excellent.
So the tricky part is to be able to be a mental renouncer and not at the same time seek illumination. Because it is the seeking of illumination that allows you to actually make mental renunciation a priority. Otherwise, the dryness will get you.
Yes. And why renounce at all without a quest? That would be unsustainable.
So mental renunciation is important, no doubt. But you have to set the priority, the ideal. Otherwise, as you just said, what's the point?
Yeah.
It's not so easy to announce results.
Mm-hmm.
It's not so easy to announce our intent.
Very true. There are, in the modern interpretations of Advaita Vedanta, there are many things that teachers say, not in our tradition, but outside. Like, for instance, one person came and told me, "Oh, samadhi, we attain that when we die." And I thought, "Wow, that's good. That's good. Yeah. Okay, then you don't have to worry." She said, "Yeah, but don't you have to be illumined in order to attain samadhi?" No. You just believe in Advaita Vedanta, believe you are the Atman, and when you die, you somehow I thought, well, that's easy Vedanta. So I don't know where these ideas come from.
I have one word to say, which I read. A learned ignorance is the end of wisdom and the beginning of religion. So as we go and strive for the divinity which is within ourselves, we become more and more aware that it's a very difficult and probably unending path. That's why Swami Yogishananda named this organization Eternal Quest. The quest goes on and on.
I remember we are all looking for the right name. Remember what to call this place? Eternal Quest. At your home, we discussed that years ago.
And there is another reason to call it Eternal Quest, because it's the same quest now as 5,000 years ago. It hasn't changed, it's eternal.
Yeah, you see. Yes.
Human beings are looking for happiness, and it's all within. It's the eternal quest for happiness and fulfillment. But you say it's an eternal quest because it takes a long time, but you never know. Sri Ramakrishna said that God has the nature of a child. A child is sitting in the porch with some diamonds in the hand. And people pass by and say, will you give me one of those bright stones? No. And then somebody passes by and doesn't look at him at all. And he runs after him and says, take. So Sri Ramakrishna said, that is the nature of God. God is like that. So we may think we don't deserve it. It will take thousands of years. Who knows? If the Divine Mother wants, anything is possible. If grace was deserved, it wouldn't be grace.
Yes.
Well said. Yes, the spiritual quest is not a meritocracy.
Meritocracy.
So, Brother Shankara, is there any aspect of Shankaracharya that appeals to you in particular?
Reading the Vivekachudam, simply his directness. There's no compromise. You're going to do this, this is who you must be. And this is how you must proceed. No ifs, ands, or buts. And the second aspect would be his absolute ironclad promise that if you do this, if you do as I say, you will achieve this result. And again, no ifs, ands, or buts. It's interesting to note that by and large, at the time that he taught, he was speaking primarily to young men. And so his fierceness was meant to be, as I grasped it, an antidote to their coltishness, their youthful vigor and enthusiasm, which can be channeled in so many directions. Krishna is very eloquent about that in the Gita. senses will take you this way and that. So Shankaracharya was so fierce in saying, you must avoid the path of the senses. You must avoid seeking enjoyment outside. Which is why it's such this uncompromising path is a difficult one for anyone. And this, when Sarvapriyananda speaks, as Sri Ramakrishna taught, about mental renunciation. As we spoke about, why? We need to have what Shankaracharya promised us, what Sri Ramakrishna promised us, firmly in our minds as the reason why to make the effort. As Swami Swahananda would say over and over, find your zeal. Find your zeal. What is it that's going to cause you to do this when you get up? And if you are attuned that way, Adi Shankaracharya will definitely give you the mental framework in which that zeal can, which is mumuksha, in which that can flower. But it's not the framework of ordinary human life.
Can you elaborate a little on what is mental renunciation?
Well, it is, like we said earlier, not being attached to the results of our actions. And also, like the Gita says, equanimity, being able to put aside our likes and dislikes. If I claim to be practicing mental renunciation and continue to have strong likes and dislikes, then what kind of renunciation is that? So renunciation, mental renunciation means we are sacrificing our own preferences, our own likes and dislikes, finding out what is expected of us, what is the right thing to do at this point in this situation, what am I supposed to do, what am I meant to do, and even if it's something that I don't like, I put aside my preference, I renounce it, I renounce my preference, I renounce my likes and dislikes, and I do what I think is right. That would be mental renunciation. And practical too, you are doing something. But maybe nobody will understand that you're doing something you don't want to do. You know, only you know. Somebody, living in the monastery, you have plenty of opportunity. So Swami will tell you, do this. And so you cannot go and say, no, I don't want. So many times you have to say yes. And your opinion, nobody asks you for your opinion. So you just renounce your own preference and do it. So it's an opportunity to test ourselves. How much am I attached to my likes and dislikes? We all have likes and dislikes. We all have our preferences. We'll either have, in the morning a banana or an orange. Even that is a preference, right? So we all have preferences, things big and small. It's just human nature that we will choose some things over others. There's nothing wrong with that. But that's where the ego asserts itself, that this is what I like, and it is my right. I have earned it. I have earned it. So why should I sacrifice it? It is my legitimate right to have what I want. And still, though I am entitled to it, though it is the rightful thing that I have, I give it up. And I do something that I sacrifice myself. That would be mental renunciation, sacrificing my preferences.
I call it a spiritual camp,
Mhm.
spiritual militancy.
Yes, yes, yes,
You
yes,
must do this.
yes, yes,
Another take on this, Maharaj,
yes,
is as you live in the world, if you want to practice mental renunciation, just do your best to live by the yamas.
yes,
If you really do your best to live by the yamas, you will renounce advantageous fibbing. You will renounce taking more than you need when you can, when no one else knows about it. This is mental.
yes, yes. And even another angle it comes to mind. And for this, you don't have to do anything actively. All you have to do is accept whatever happens to you. You don't have to do anything. Just accept whatever happens to you. That is mental renunciation.
Amen.
I tell you a story. You know, M, a disciple of Sri Ramakrishna. So he was a family man, but he was highly respected. The Swamis used to come and bow down to him. And so he used to get visitors all the time. Swamis would come and sit at his feet to hear about Sri Ramakrishna. So one day, the Swami came to visit him, and they are talking in, the upper room, top of the house. He used to receive people there, and this Swami, he heard some kind of shouting or some loud voices, like somebody's crying from the lower levels. And he said, "Has something happened?" He asked him. He said, "Oh no, don't worry about it. Let's continue our talk, etc." So they continue talking, and he gives them prasad, and everything as usual happens. He visits and they talk. Then when he leaves, he finds like there is a funeral procession outside the house. M's daughter had died that day. And he is carrying on as usual. Now that is mental renunciation. It's not that he's heartless. He's heartbroken. But, he's accepting. Well, it's an extreme case.
Yes, extreme.
There is another type of renunciation in India some people practice. They go to Banaras. After praying Shiva, they're supposed to give up the most favorite thing in their life, like a food item. Like my parents went, their favorite was eggplant. They gave up the eggplant.
Yes.
They eat the eggplant at any time.
Yeah.
My mother had such a difficult time. After a few years later, she started eating. My dad held up to it
Nice.
until he died. So
Nice.
this is another type of testing yourself.
Yeah.
Whether you have the willpower to do this, probably
True.
part of the renunciation.
True.
Swamiji, as you say, there is a flip side to everything. Same thing about accepting whatever happens. If somebody like Martin Luther King or Gandhi had not raised voice against injustice, there would still have been slavery.
But these are people, they are not ordinary people. These are people who come with missions. They are working for others. It's a little different. One thing is when things affect me personally, like my ego is involved. Another thing is Gandhi. Gandhi is the father of the nation.
Yes.
He's not an ordinary person. He's working for others. He has a mission to fulfill. So I wouldn't compare Gandhi to just ourselves. It's a different thing. Yeah.
That's good.
It is so fortuitous that next weekend is Mahashivratri. And India and many Shiva Bhaktas will be enjoying and will be worshipping whole night Shiva next weekend. But on a lighter vein, we always exchange ideas at the end. But 3 days ago, besides ideas, somebody exchanged the shoes.
Oh,
So that somebody else's shoes are picked up and leaving behind his own or her own shoes. And this came as a comment on our channel. And then Pranav said that I'm the one who picked up the wrong shoes.
I beg the pardon of the gentleman who lost his shoes. I'm getting very old, that's why. But it is, I brought it back.
That is the difference between an ordinary Hindu temple and this one. In a Hindu temple, they are stolen, not exchanged.
Oh, yeah.
And here they are returned.
Yes.
But then the Sanskrit word for shoe is upanaha.
Uh-huh.
Next to feet, there is the other thing which carries you where you want to go. So both of them will be able to go where they want to.
There is one advantage in the Indian temples. If you have old shoes you want to get rid of, just leave them there.
Yes.
There they come with a purpose to stay.
Yeah.
Here it's not, it's inadvertent.
You don't have to go to recycle the shoes somewhere. Just leave it outside.
Usually it is across the temple. There is a shoe shop right there.
Oh.
Yeah.
And you will not be surprised if you find your shoes.
Oh my goodness.
Once the Swami took my shoes by accident. So I wore his shoes. He was over 6 feet tall, so his were huge on me.
Wow.
There is a simple trick to avoid the shoes getting stolen at the temple. Is take one shoe and keep it at the extreme end and take another shoe. That's what I used to do.
Oh, that's smart.
That's a good idea. What are they stolen?
Yeah.
That's what I used to do.
Very good.
Just gonna steal one shoe.
It's saying, where there are green people, low-beat, and there are other side cheats, who cheat. So wherever there is greed, there is somebody who is even bigger than you,
Yeah.
excels in cheating. So lobia and do that.
Yes, accepting things as they happen to you. Taking the attitude, well, somebody needed those shoes more than I did.
Right. Somebody was criticizing one sage, like insulting, and one of the disciples said, "Sir, why do you put up with this? He's insulting you. It's really painful for us to witness." The sage said, "Look, in this world, there's so much suffering, so much misery, and this poor man is getting some joy insulting me. Why should I deprive him?"
Let him be happy.
Yeah.
And the wonder of that remark, Maharaj, is that you can believe that he truly meant it.
Yeah. Yeah.
This is where we find in the words of Sri Ramakrishna and the words of the other great teachers. When they say them, they really mean them. So that allows us to really take them to heart.
Yeah.
So what time is it done?
It is 1:45, I think.
Oh my goodness.
10 to 1.
All right.
All right.
Let us go into the monastery.